A young intern nurse was ready to donate her kidney to a dying stranger. She had no idea the man was a billionaire. She wasn't looking for money, fame, or attention. She simply saw a man in need and stepped forward when no one else would. But what happened after her decision changed everything, not just for him, but for her future. This is not fiction. This is a true story of sacrifice, silence, and unexpected reward. Would you give up a part of yourself to save a life, even if you thought you'd get nothing in return? Ava Carter started her nursing internship at Westview Medical Center 3 weeks ago. She didn't know what to expect, but the emergency room moved faster than anything she had experienced in training. She spent most of her shifts checking vitals, changing bedsheets, and handing over supplies. She was assigned to the night shift, which meant fewer staff around and more responsibility than she was officially trained for. Most senior nurses didn't pay her much attention. Some were polite, others didn't bother learning her name. She knew it wasn't personal. Everyone was tired and the work never stopped. There were people coming in at all hours. Accidents, strokes, drug overdoses, and infections that had gone too long untreated. Ava took it seriously. Even if she was only allowed to do small tasks, she stayed alert and made sure to learn as much as she could. On a cold Tuesday morning at 2:30 a.m., a man was brought in by ambulance. He was unconscious, with low blood pressure and irregular heartbeat. The paramedics said they found him collapsed near a bus stop. He had no wallet, no ID, and wasn't carrying a phone. He looked to be in his late 50s. His shirt and jacket were wet, and his hands were cold. Doctors rushed him to Bay 3. Ava stood near the corner, holding a tray of 4 supplies. The man was pale, and his breathing was shallow. Dr. Manning and the attending nurse moved quickly. After a few tests, they confirmed kidney failure. The man's body wasn't filtering fluids, and waste was building up. They got him on dialysis immediately. "He's not in our system," someone said. "No ID. No contacts. No insurance. He'll be John Doe for now," another nurse said. Ava kept watching. His face was still but not tense. No one could figure out what had caused the failure. There were no visible injuries. He didn't speak, and there was no sign of drug use or trauma. Ava felt like something about the case wasn't normal, but she didn't say anything. She stayed quiet and followed instructions. After his condition stabilized, they moved him to a small room at the end of the hallway. His vitals were holding and he was scheduled for more testing in the morning. Ava's shift was supposed to end at 6 a.m., but she stayed a little longer. No one noticed. Before leaving, she checked on him again. He hadn't regained consciousness. The machines next to him were still running. Dialysis was scheduled every day until further notice. The next night, Ava came back for her shift and stopped by room 9. He was still listed as John Doe. No changes. No visitors. Nothing in the notes about new leads. She asked the charge nurse, "Is anyone looking into who he is?" They ran his fingerprints. Nothing came up. If no one claims him, he'll be referred to social work and added to the transplant list. Will he qualify without insurance? Ava asked. The nurse shrugged. Doubt it. He'd have to get lucky. Later that night, Ava stood by the window near the nurse's station. She didn't know why the patient stood out to her. They had other cases with no ID, but something about him made her want to check in more often. She didn't say anything about it to the others. A few days passed. The man remained in the same room, still on dialysis, still unresponsive. Then one night, he opened his eyes while Ava was changing out his 4 fluids. She stopped what she was doing. "You're at Westview Medical. You've been here for a few days." He looked around the room but didn't say anything. "You came in with kidney failure. You've been stable since Monday," she added. He turned his head slightly but didn't respond. "If you tell us your name, we can try contacting someone for you," Ava said. He looked at her and finally spoke. No one to call. His voice was quiet and rough. She couldn't tell if it was from the illness or if he just didn't want to talk. Either way, she didn't press him. Well, I'm Ava. I'm on night shift. Let me know if you need anything. He didn't reply. Over the next 2 nights, Ava kept checking in. He still didn't say much, but he watched her more closely. Once he asked her what time it was. Another time, he asked if the dialysis would continue daily. That was the most he'd spoken. One morning, while she was cleaning up supplies, she overheard 2 doctors talking in the hallway. They were discussing organ donation and wait lists. Unless someone comes forward as a direct donor, this guy doesn't stand a chance, one of them said. He's got no ID, no history. Not even clear where he's from. Policy won't let us bump him up unless there's a medical emergency or special approval, the other replied. He's got 2 weeks tops. After that, he's going to crash. Ava didn't say anything. She finished restocking the tray and walked back to the break room. That conversation stayed in her head. That night, Ava sat in the staff lounge and opened her phone. She searched for information about living kidney donation. She read about blood types, cross-matching, and risks. She had known for years that she was O positive. She remembered her blood type from when she donated in high school. She didn't talk to anyone about it. Not yet. But she went to the lab and filled out a form for blood testing. She submitted it under her own login. The tech looked at her strangely. This isn't standard. I know. Just run it. 2 days later, she went back to the lab and picked up the envelope. The test said she was a compatible match. Ava folded the paper and put it in her pocket. She didn't tell anyone. Not the doctors, not the other nurses. Not even her roommate. She kept thinking about what she had read. About the risks, the recovery time, the paperwork. She didn't have extra money to cover missed work, and she wasn't sure if the hospital would even allow it. But every time she walked past room 9, she thought about the same thing. He was going to die soon, and no one else was doing anything about it. That night, while changing his 4 bag, she asked, "Has anyone come to see you?" He looked up at her. "No. No one knows where you are?" He shook his head once. "Doesn't matter. You don't want to tell the doctors your name?" "No point." She didn't ask again. She just finished the task and left the room. Back in the hallway, she pulled the test result from her pocket and looked at it again. She knew what it meant. She was a match. And if she did nothing, he was going to die in that room. Probably without anyone ever knowing who he was. Ava kept working her night shifts at Westview. The patient in room 9 was still alive, but the dialysis wasn't enough. His blood pressure was dropping more often now. He'd lost more weight. The doctors didn't say it out loud, but Ava could see they were preparing for the worst. Nobody had come forward to identify him. His name wasn't in any system. Still listed as John Doe. Most nurses checked his vitals, gave him medications, and moved on. Ava stayed a little longer each time. She didn't always talk. Sometimes she just stood quietly and checked his chart. She had the compatibility results folded in her pocket every shift. She looked at them when no one was watching. Her blood was a match. She wasn't a doctor, but she knew what that meant. If she donated one of her kidneys, he had a real chance of surviving. The thought stayed in her head through the week. On Thursday, after the night rush slowed down, she walked into the transplant coordinator's office. The coordinator, Ms. Blake, was at her desk finishing up notes. "I need to talk to you about a possible kidney donation," Ava said. Ms. Blake looked up. "For who?" "The man in room 9. "The John Doe?" she asked. "Yes. I ran a test. I'm a match." Ms. Blake looked surprised. "How did you run a compatibility screen?" "I used my login. I know it's not protocol." Ms. Blake didn't say anything at first. Then she motioned for Ava to sit. Are you related to him? No. I don't even know his name. You're telling me you want to give a kidney to a stranger? Yes. Miss Blake leaned back in her chair. You're still an intern. Do you know what this means? The recovery? The time off? The risks? I've read about it. You haven't even been here a month. I know. You could lose your job for breaking testing rules. I know that too. Miss Blake looked at her again. This is going to go up the chain. You need to speak to legal, the ethics board, and administration. I'm not the one who decides this. That's fine. I'm ready. By the next day, the hospital legal team called Ava in for a meeting. They asked her why she ran the test. She told the truth. They asked if anyone pressured her. She said no. They wanted to know her financial situation, whether she had support, and if she understood what the surgery involved. You're not related, not married, not even friends, one of the administrators said. This is going to raise red flags. I'm not asking for anything in return, Ava said. He's going to die, and I can help. They told her they would review the case and get back to her. Over the weekend, people in the hospital started whispering about it. Some staff thought she was crazy. Others said she was brave. No one had a clear answer. Ava stayed quiet. She did her job. Checked patients. Monitored room 9 like usual. He still didn't talk much. But one night he said something. You're the one trying to donate, aren't you? She looked at him. Yes. He didn't respond for a few seconds. That's not a good idea. Why not? You don't know me. I know you need help. You could get sick. You could die. I've read the risk. I'm willing to take it. He turned his head toward the wall. You don't even know my name. You never told me. He didn't say anything else. The conversation ended there. 2 days later, Ava was called into a meeting with the hospital's ethics committee. 5 people sat around a table. They reviewed her paperwork. They asked the same questions again. Why she wanted to do this, if she understood the outcome, if she had family support. She answered calmly. At the end, one of the board members said, even if you're a match, the committee has to weigh medical and ethical concerns. You're new. You're not even out of probation. That makes this difficult. Does that mean no? She asked. We'll issue a decision in writing. That night, Ava stayed in room 9 a little longer. He was sleeping. The machines were loud. She stood near the sink and watched the numbers on the screen. In the morning, the official decision came. The hospital denied her request to donate. The letter said she didn't meet the requirements due to her probationary status and lack of connection to the patient. Ava sat in the break room with the letter in her hand. She didn't talk. She just folded it and put it in her bag. She kept going to work. She kept checking on him. She didn't tell him the request was denied. One night, during her shift, she walked past room 9 and noticed something different. The man's chart had been pulled. His name was still listed as John Doe, but the medication plan had changed. More aggressive treatment had been ordered. She asked a nurse about it. They're trying to stabilize him again. Something's going on upstairs. Later that night, Ava heard the staff whispering. The man in room 9 had been transferred to a private room on the 6th floor. No one explained why. When her shift ended, she went upstairs. A man in a suit was standing outside the room. I'm Nurse Ava Carter, she said. I was caring for him in the ER. The man looked at her for a moment. Then he stepped aside and opened the door. The room was bigger, quieter, cleaner. The man was sitting up in bed. His hair had been trimmed, his face was clean, and he was wearing a new hospital gown. 2 more men in suits were standing near the back. He looked at her and nodded. Close the door. She stepped in and shut it. He spoke first. My name is James Weston. She stood still. I own several companies. I've been off the grid for the past few months. I didn't want people to know I was sick, She didn't say anything. When I collapsed, I didn't plan on surviving, he said. I left my name behind on purpose. Then why are you here? Because you didn't walk away. You didn't know who I was, and you still tried. She looked at him. You should have told us. I didn't want special treatment. I didn't want reporters or people offering me kidneys for money. She didn't respond. I told the hospital who I was yesterday, he said. They moved me. They restarted the approval process. Your donation is back under review. She stared at him. You could have done that the first day. I wanted to see if anyone would help without a name. You did. She looked at the machines beside him, then back at him. Is it still going to happen? They said it's moving forward. She took a step toward the door. I didn't do this because of who you are, she said. I know. That's why it mattered. Ava was starting to feel the weight of her decision. She had known that the surgery was still weeks away, but with each passing day, the pressure to understand the full scope of what she was about to do grew. The transplant was officially approved. Now there was only one step left, the surgery. But the question of why she was doing this, why she had committed to helping someone she didn't know, especially someone with so many unknowns, remained. She continued to work her shifts, checking in on James every few hours. His condition was slowly improving, though he was still heavily reliant on machines to help him breathe and keep his heart rate steady. He was still the mystery man in room 9 to most of the hospital staff. Only a few knew his real identity, those who were in the small circle of high-level administration, legal teams, and doctors. But to everyone else, he was just another patient. Ava hadn't spoken much to him since their last conversation. The distance was mutual. He wasn't asking for any special treatment, but neither was he eager to share his past. It was like he was waiting for something before he would open up to her. It wasn't until Thursday morning that Ava finally got the chance to sit with him again. Her shift had just started, and she walked into his room, prepared to check his vitals. He was sitting up, looking out the window, deep in thought. "You're up early," she said as she entered. He turned slowly and smiled, trying to get used to the idea of being awake again. "Is that a good sign?" she asked. He nodded. "I think so." Ava checked the machines beside him and reviewed his chart. "Your vitals are looking good today. I'll be back in a couple of hours for your next round of tests." "Actually, Ava," he said, stopping her before she could leave, "there's something I need to tell you." She paused, looking at him. "What's going on?" He sat up straighter, his expression becoming more serious. "You've been kind to me, and I don't want you to make any decisions based on something I've kept hidden." Ava furrowed her brows. "What do you mean?" "I haven't been honest with you about who I am. Not because I didn't trust you, but because it didn't matter. At least, that's what I thought." She didn't say anything, letting him continue. "I'm James Weston. I own Weston Industries. I'm worth close to $1 billion. Ava stood still for a moment, absorbing what he said. It wasn't the name she had expected. She had heard of Weston Industries, the massive corporation that dealt in everything from tech to construction. But she hadn't connected the dots until now. The realization hit her like a wave. You're James Weston?" she repeated, the surprise clear in her voice. "Yeah," he said, his voice quiet now. "I've been keeping it under wraps. I didn't want anyone to know I was sick. I didn't want to be treated differently. So I faked it. I used the name John Doe. I didn't want anyone to give me special care or sympathy just because of who I am." Ava shook her head slowly. "But why didn't you tell the hospital from the beginning?" He looked down at his hands. "I wasn't ready to face it. I didn't want to be seen as the guy who could throw money at any problem. I wanted to see if anyone would still treat me like a person, not a wallet. If they'd still care, even if they didn't know my name." Ava took a breath, still processing everything. "And I just happen to be the one who tried to help? James nodded. Yeah. You're the one person who didn't back off, didn't treat me like some charity case. And when you offered your kidney, I was honestly surprised. I've been in and out of hospitals most of my life, but no one has ever been willing to risk their health for me without expecting something in return. Ava didn't know how to respond. Part of her felt betrayed, but another part was confused. She had agreed to donate her kidney without any knowledge of who he was. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about fame. It was simply about helping a person in need. But now, with all this new information, the situation felt different. Why tell me now? She asked. Why not before? I didn't want to change your mind, he said. I didn't want you to think I was manipulating you. But now that you're so involved, I thought it was time to be honest. She took a deep breath, trying to keep her emotions in check. I don't know how to feel about this. I understand, he said quietly. It was never about me taking advantage of your kindness. If you want to back out now, I'll understand. She shook her head. I'm not backing out. I'm committed to helping you. That hasn't changed. James looked at her with a mixture of relief and gratitude. I don't want you to feel pressured, but I also want to make sure you know the full truth. I know I'm asking a lot of you, more than anyone would be willing to give. I'm doing this because I believe it's the right thing to do, she replied. Not because of who you are. Not because of your money. James looked at her for a long time, then finally nodded. Thank you. You have no idea how much this means to me. The silence between them was heavy, but there was a sense of understanding now. Ava was no longer just a nurse helping a patient. She had made a choice, one that came from her own sense of morality, not out of any desire for fame or wealth. And James knew it. The conversation ended there. Ava went back to her rounds and James rested. He seemed more at ease now, as though a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. The next few days passed without much change. Ava continued to monitor him, and his condition improved. The surgery date was still set, but now she was dealing with the internal conflict of knowing who he was. As she prepared for the operation, her thoughts lingered on the conversation they had. She wasn't sure what would happen afterward, but she knew one thing for sure. Her decision to help wasn't about money. It never had been. And no matter who he was, it still wouldn't be. The transplant surgery took place early Monday morning. Ava had been taken in for pre-op the night before, and the nurses kept things quiet. No one asked her how she felt or if she was nervous. She didn't feel like talking, and she didn't want to be convinced of anything. Her mind was already made up. James had been moved in before her. They didn't cross paths, and there was no conversation. That was how she preferred it. The operation lasted about 4 hours. Later, when she was in the recovery room, the surgeon told her everything had gone well. Her kidney had started working right away in James's body. Ava was groggy from anesthesia, and all she did was nod. The pain started hitting harder that evening. The area around the incision felt tight and sharp. Nurses helped her sit up for a few minutes, then asked her to rest. She was given pain medicine, but she still couldn't sleep properly. By the next day, she was more alert, though still weak. She could eat a few crackers and drink water. The doctor said her vitals were steady and there were no signs of infection. James was also stable. He was still under close watch, but the reports were positive. Ava didn't ask for more updates. If anything went wrong, someone would tell her. On Wednesday, a nurse helped her walk to the bathroom. It was painful, but she managed. She spoke little. Some of the staff she knew came by to check in on her, but she kept the conversations short. She appreciated them, but she wasn't in the mood for talking. Thursday morning, she got a visitor. He walked in slowly, using a cane. He looked pale and thin, but he was standing and alert. He had on a hospital gown with a light jacket over it. One of the nurses stood just outside the room. "You're not supposed to be walking around," Ava said as he stepped inside. "Neither are you," he replied. "I'm getting discharged tomorrow," she said, shifting slightly in her bed. "Heard. I wanted to talk before you left." Ava looked at him, unsure of what to say. "I didn't get a chance to thank you," he said. "Not properly." "You don't have to." "Yes, I do," he said. "You didn't know me. You didn't owe me anything. But you still went through with it." Ava kept her eyes on him. "I said I would. That was enough." "I didn't expect you to follow through," James admitted. "I didn't expect anyone to." "Well, I did," she said. There was a short pause. He stepped a little closer, though he was careful not to move too fast. "I know I already said this before, but I want to help you," he said. "With school, housing, work, whatever you need." Ava sighed. "I didn't do this to get anything." "I know that," he said. "And I'm not offering because I think you expected something. I'm offering because you did something I can't ignore." She stayed quiet. "I'm not planning to make this public," he added. "No press, no interviews. But I'll make some quiet calls. Nothing that puts you in the spotlight." "Why?" she asked, finally looking up. "Because people should be helping you," he said. "You didn't wait for someone to step up. You just did it. That matters." She didn't like how that sounded, even though he seemed sincere. She didn't want people treating her like she was special. She just wanted to finish her internship and move forward. "I just wanted to do something right," she said. "You did." He didn't say more. After a few more seconds, he turned to leave. At the door, he glanced back. "You'll be okay?" "I'll manage." He nodded and walked out with the nurse trailing behind. The next day, Ava was discharged. There was no ceremony, no attention. She left through a back entrance. A friend from school picked her up and drove her home. Her apartment was quiet. Her roommate was still away, so Ava had the place to herself. She lay on the couch and didn't move much for the rest of the day. Her phone buzzed a few times. She didn't check it until the next evening. One message stood out. It was from someone in the hospital's HR department asking if she could come in for a meeting the following week. She replied and agreed to Tuesday. When she arrived at the hospital office, the head of HR and the nursing director were waiting for her. She was still walking slow, and the chair felt stiff when she sat. "We wanted to speak with you about your future with us," the HR manager said. Ava sat quietly and listened. "We've reviewed your clinical evaluations and your overall performance. We also discussed your decision to become a donor." Ava shifted a bit in her seat. "We'd like to offer you a full-time nursing position," the nursing director said. "Pending your licensure, of course." "I haven't even taken my board exam yet," Ava said. "We'll help you schedule it once you're medically cleared," the HR manager said. "In the meantime, we're offering you a transitional position with a path to full-time." Ava looked at both of them. "Why now?" "There was a recommendation submitted on your behalf," the HR manager said. "Someone who wanted to make sure your skills were recognized." She didn't ask who. It didn't matter. She knew. "I'll accept it," she said. They handed her the paperwork. It was straightforward. A regular offer. No special treatment. A job with benefits and a plan forward. That was all she had wanted in the first place. She signed it that night at home. 2 weeks later, Ava was back in the hospital. This time, she wore scrubs. She was placed in a general unit and worked under a senior nurse. Her tasks were light. No lifting, no long shifts yet. She still moved slow, and she had to rest often, but she was on the schedule. She passed James's room once. It was empty. He'd been discharged already. She didn't hear from him, and he didn't leave any messages. That was fine with her. She was back at work. She had a path forward. She didn't need anything else. Ava was 3 months into her full-time nursing job. Her shifts were longer now, and she rotated between general medicine and surgical recovery. She had built a steady routine. She came in early, completed her tasks, and avoided unnecessary conversations. Most of the staff respected her space. One Thursday morning, just after a 12-hour shift, she received a message from the hospital administrator's office asking her to stop by. She went straight there without asking questions. She was tired, but she didn't want to delay it. When she entered the office, the administrator stood and asked her to take a seat. Another man was there, sitting to the side. It was James. He stood up when he saw her and gave a polite nod. He looked more polished than the last time she'd seen him. He wore a suit again, no cane, no signs of weakness. He didn't speak until the administrator left and closed the door behind her. "I'm not here to cause trouble," he said. "This won't take long." Ava sat, keeping her arms crossed. "What is it this time? I know you don't want attention. I've respected that. I didn't contact the press. I didn't speak to anyone about what you did." She gave a short nod. "Okay. But there's something I need to do," he continued. "And I can't leave until I've done it." He reached down beside his chair and lifted a thick envelope. It wasn't sealed. He set it on the table between them. "I've transferred $500,000 into a new account under your name," he said. "No publicity. No conditions. The account is active. You can use it or not. That's up to you." Ava stared at the envelope. "I didn't ask for this." "I know," he said. "You told me more than once. I didn't forget that. But I'm not doing this for show. I'm doing it because you changed the direction of my life. You didn't know who I was. You had no reason to care what happened to me. But you still stepped forward when others stepped back." She kept her eyes on the envelope. "I'm not interested in being part of your image." "This isn't about image," he replied. "I've been sick, angry, and isolated for a long time. I didn't think people like you existed. I was wrong. That matters to me." She didn't speak. He didn't interrupt her silence. After nearly a minute, she spoke again. "What if I never touch the money? Then it sits there. It's yours. I won't check in. I won't ask questions." Ava leaned forward slightly. "What's the name of the account?" "Your full name. Ava Celeste Barnes. It's already active. You'll find the card and banking details inside." She looked at him. "And if I walk out and never use it?" He shrugged. "That's your right. I won't say anything either way." She opened the envelope slowly. Inside, there was a simple folder. She saw the account number, the bank's contact, and a debit card. There were no instructions, no branding. Just documents. It all looked clean and professional. She closed the folder and held it in her hands. "I'll think about it," she said. "That's fair." He stood up. "I'm leaving the country next month. Moving the company to a smaller operation. I don't plan to come back for a while." She stood too. "So this is your last visit?" "Yes." She walked to the door and opened it. He looked at her one more time. "You saved my life. I won't forget that. Goodbye, James." He nodded. Then he left. Ava didn't tell anyone about the meeting. She didn't mention the envelope. She took it home and placed it in the drawer beside her bed. She didn't touch it for a week. On Sunday night, she finally logged into the account using the information inside. The balance was there. $500,000, exactly. It hadn't moved. No notes, no emails. Just the money. She stared at the screen for a long time. Then she closed the laptop. The next day, she returned to work. Over the next few weeks, she didn't speak about the money. But she did make a few quiet changes. She paid off her student loans in full. She cleared her roommate's rent debt. Then she started sending small monthly donations to a local children's clinic in her neighborhood. She never changed apartments. She didn't buy a new car. She kept wearing her same shoes, using the same secondhand backpack, and waking up at 5:30 every morning. But she finally stopped taking extra shifts. She had enough. Sometimes the people we overlook are the ones who carry the greatest strength. Ava didn't ask for anything in return, but her quiet act of kindness changed everything, not just for the man she saved, but for herself too. What would you do in her place? If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another real-life story like this. And if you believe in the power of kindness, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Let us know in the comments. What's the most selfless thing you've ever witnessed? Thanks for watching.